Hello there, guests and esteemed subscribers. I woke up this morning and realized that I had 13 years of experience in the recycling industry. And what it didn't feel like was that I had 13 years of experience in the recycling industry. So I want to leverage all this experience. I want to teach you guys a lot of things that I've learned by starting my own recycling company when I was 19 and doing recycling for profit even before then. I want to teach you guys some things that you can avoid, and I want to give you an overview of how to set up a recycling for profit company in your own neighborhood. Let's get into it. I'm going to show you step by step how to do everything, but it's not going to get detailed enough. I mean, it might get detailed enough to give you an idea of what to do, but it's not going to get detailed enough to start this company. Like, this is not how to start the company blueprint. That's going to come a little bit later. First, we need to lay out a 4-step outline for the recycling for profit business. So the first step is going to be identify which specific waste stream that you want to recycle, whether it's metal, plastic, paper, styrofoam, whatever you want to recycle. Pick that thing and make sure that you have a buyer for it. That is step number 1. Step number 2 is you're going to have to source this waste. So not only do you need a buyer for the waste, but you also have to have some way of getting it and getting it sorted. Nobody wants mixed waste. That's not recyclable. So you need to tell your neighbors to sort a certain material for you or leave it out for you to collect. The next thing that you're going to do is legitimize the business. So if you want to start with like a DBN or no business structure at all, you can certainly do that. But as soon as you actually get things off the ground and start collecting any kind of waste, and especially once you start profiting, you're going to want to legitimize the business. You can start with the DBN at first if you want, but I would highly suggest structuring any kind of waste collection business as an LLC as soon as possible. I know that's the MBA in me talking, but it is very good advice. There is some liability associated with collecting waste. The fourth thing you need to do, and the most necessary part of every business plan, is to profit. It's not a business plan if you don't profit, unless it's a non-profit. So before you can start a recycling company, the first thing that you're going to need to do is choose what you're going to recycle. So you need to make sure that what you want to recycle actually has a buyer. So what I would recommend before doing a lot of groundwork or doing a lot of unnecessary work is find someone that wants to buy your material. So look around your area, and there's going to be an individual video specifically about how to find buyers for your material. But look around your area and make sure that whatever you want to recycle already has a buyer. You don't want to end up with a bunch of material that you're trying to recycle, but no one to buy it. You can't recycle anything if no one's buying it. Once you have a buyer for your material, and again, there will be another video that specifically lays out how to find buyers. But once you do find a buyer for your material, you'll need to ask them some questions. There are very industry-specific standard questions that almost every recycled material buyer will want to know from you. So one of the most important things is how much are they paying for your material per pound, per ton, per item quantity, per kilogram, etc. You'll want to know how they measure it and how much they pay per unit of measurement. They'll say something like, well, we pay 10 cents per pound for this material, or we pay $200 per ton for this material. So you want to ask them how they pay and what they pay. The next thing that's going to be incredibly important when you go to actually find a buyer for your material, you need to ask them if they have any minimum quantity. So not all recyclable materials can be recycled in small quantities. Some materials, especially like plastics and glass and paper, can only be recycled in fairly large quantities, like more than 5 tons. So you want to make sure that your buyer either does or does not have any specific quantities of materials. Generally, there won't be a particular maximum. Usually the more the better, but a lot of times they do have a minimum, as in we will only buy 5 tons at a time or 10 tons at a time, etc. You'll want to get that information from your buyer. Another very important piece of information that you'll want to get from your buyer is their pricing schedule. Will they pay more for more material? Interestingly enough, the recycling industry, unlike practically every other industry, is kind of backwards with supply and demand. So the more material you can supply a buyer, typically the more money they'll pay for it. So keep that in mind and ask your buyer if they'll be able to pay a premium if you bring in more than the minimum quantity of material. The next information you'll want to get from your buyer is how the material needs to be packaged, if it needs to be packaged or if it can just be transported loose, if it needs to be palletized, etc. You'll also want to ask them how they unload the material, just in case you're shipping them something like non-standardized. So you want to know if they have forklifts, if they have a material handler, if they have front end loaders, telehandler, forklifts, cranes. You'll really want to know how they plan to unload your material once it arrives, because that'll give you a great idea of how you can ship it, if you could ship it yourself, etc., etc. So make sure to get that information from your buyer. Next, another very standard thing in the recycling industry is selling and buying things according to weight or by weight. So in order to buy something by weight, you have to know how much it weighs. So you'll need to figure out how you're going to determine the weights of the material that you're sending to your buyer. So either you need to provide scale tickets or you need to get them to weigh the material on site. Some buyers are able to weigh material on site and some are not. That's something you'll want to talk out with them ahead of time. Let's talk about step number 2. How to actually source your waste. So the way you're going to do this is you can either pick up material yourself or you can designate a location where people can drop off material. Now, both of these methods have their pros and cons, but let's start with the second method. Let's say that you have a place where people can come and drop off material. Before you actually, name or designate a place where people can drop off material, you're going to want to make sure that you don't have an HOA that prevents people from doing that, and that your city or county don't prevent you from doing that, and that there's no, region, city, or country or state specific guidelines that prevent you from collecting waste at a given location. Generally, if you're doing it on a small scale, no one's really going to care for a long time. But if it gets to a point where people are bringing a lot of recycling, then you're going to want to make absolutely sure you're doing this in a commercial location or somewhere where people are allowed to bring waste and store it like that. So the other option is to actually go and pick it up yourself. So if you have access to, let's say, a pickup truck or a box truck or any kind of, commercial truck or commercial shipping methods, this could be a great solution. So you could simply tell, your friends and neighbors, hey, collect all your cans for me, collect all your metal, collect all your styrofoam, your glass, whatever it is that you want to, collect and recycle. Tell them to go ahead and collect it and leave it out for you along with big trash or whatever they're going to leave out. And then go and pick it up, the day before the regular trash service comes to pick up. So you're not really asking them to do a lot of extra work. It's not really a ton of extra work for you. You're just driving from place to place, making a route and picking up this material. But it'll prevent you from having to tell people they can come and they can come and put their waste at a designated location. That is one nice way to kind of get around that. And if you do have access to a truck, that's a good possibility. And then you could actually do kind of a hybrid of both methods. Let's say if you have like a big garage or something like that, you could go and pick up waste. Let's say you've got your neighbors bagging up aluminum cans or bagging up plastic bottles or glass bottles for you, leaving it with their regular recycling. You could actually make a route, go and pick that up, and then store all that material in your garage when you get back until you get enough material to recycle it for profit. Step number 3. Make sure to actually make the business legitimate. So once you get to the point where you're collecting recyclables, you're sending them to your buyer, you're getting paid for them, you want to make sure that your business is legitimate immediately. So at the very least, you want to file a DBN, get a bank account, be able to collect checks with your name on them, do all the proper business things. I would strongly recommend doing an LLC. Strongly recommend getting an LLC because there is some liability involved in the waste handling and waste recycling industry. So I would suggest getting an LLC, doing everything properly, etc. Once you have your business set up, you can actually start deducting things like your mileage, any home office expenses, things like that. So it's definitely in your best interest to get that set up. You can save a ton of money. Finally, and probably the most important, is you need to get payment terms finalized. So you need to figure out exactly when and how you will be paid for your material. So typically you'll be paid within 30 days, but a lot of buyers, especially for small scale customers, will pay you up front for your material. So they'll essentially just pay for your material when you bring it to them. Here are a few things to keep in mind about this recycling business blueprint. Number one, this recycling business blueprint tends to work much better in areas that don't already have a recycling program. Number two, this recycling for profit business blueprint may not work well in areas that have HOAs or other legal restrictions that prohibit this kind of residential waste collection in small quantities. So you'll want to do your research and make sure that there are no laws preventing what you want to do. Even in areas that have HOAs or legal restrictions that may prevent you from setting up a recycling for profit business model like the one described in the blueprint in this video, you still may be able to do it as a charitable cause or to raise funds for a charitable organization. In a lot of cases, HOAs and other legal restrictions will be overlooked, if not waived entirely, if the organizations know that you're doing this on a temporary basis for a charitable cause in order to raise funds. So also keep that in mind. I know a lot of Boy Scout groups and volunteer fire departments will set up programs like this in the short term for short-term fundraising goals. So keep that in mind as well. Regardless of whether you're setting up this recycling for profit business blueprint for profit or for fundraising or for some charitable cause, regardless of why you're doing it, the environment will still benefit either way. One way or another, your waste and other people's waste is getting collected, recycled, and that prevents a lot of carbon from entering the atmosphere from the use of virgin materials or mining fresh minerals. So regardless of the individual's motivation, the environment's going to benefit either way. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. That'll really help us out a lot and help us to reach more people and really expand our efforts in providing some recycling awareness. So please make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please make sure to comment. I'll respond to any comments on this video, and I'll make sure that we can start a dialogue in the comment section. Thank you, everybody, and I'll be sure to put the next one out soon.